So there's a pretty popular movie out there and it's called Groundhog Day, and if you don't remember anything about it, don't worry, because I really don't either. Honestly, it's slightly before my time. However, I have heard enough about the plot to know what it's about, and basically the guy gets to wake up and live the same day every day over and over again. Now, for those of you that have seen that movie, that's obviously a very brief explanation of it. However, it's the only part that's relevant to this video, because when it comes to LeBron James led teams, I feel like we've been waking up for the last 7 years and living the same day over and over again, yet for some reason people don't seem to accept this very simple fact about these teams, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and the one thing that people don't seem to realize yet about LeBron James led teams is that they are extremely deceptive in the regular season. And it's led to this extremely repetitive plot in the Eastern Conference that for some reason a lot of people just don't seem to have figured out yet. So if you're one of those people that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the breakdown right now. LeBron James led teams in the Eastern Conference, they come in, they have stretches where they play really good basketball and look extremely dominant. Then they have parts of the season where the teams that they're actually going to have to play in the playoffs, they do questionable against, so either they barely beat them or they just lose to them altogether. They do this between, 2 or 3 teams, maybe 3 if you're lucky that year, and then the big uprising comes from the fans saying that so-and-so team is going to give them a run for their money in the playoffs. The playoffs finally come and LeBron James led team steamroll the entire Eastern Conference, and it has been the same exact storyline over and over again ever since LeBron joined the Miami Heat. And the reason I felt the need to make a video about this is because the same thing is happening this year. You have some slightly better teams in the Eastern Conference this year, and the Cavaliers are not having their best season at all. They're not healthy and they're not playing great basketball. And here people go again with the thing that the Celtics might beat them and the Wizards might beat them. Historically, this looks exactly like what's happened for every other season, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I found. So what you guys are looking at on your screen is basically a list that I compiled from LeBron James basically over this decade with teams that he led. Now you're going to notice that 2012 is not on this list because in the year 2012 that was a lockout shortened year. After Miami made the finals in the East, it was pretty well accepted for that short time that they were the dominant power, and the only other team that could have really beat them healthy were the Chicago Bulls. Of course, Derrick Rose got injured in the first round, so then it was Boston, and Boston really only stood a chance because Chris Bosh got hurt. So I kind of omitted 2012 from this list, but as you can see, in these seasons stretching from 2011 to 2016, a LeBron James led team has never had a winning record against the other teams that you would consider, I don't want to call them contenders because I don't really know if that's what they were, but teams that could challenge the LeBron led team in the playoffs. And that's pretty incredible when you think about it, because this entire decade a LeBron James team on paper has always been pretty much significantly better than the rest of the conference. Maybe earlier in the decade when the Boston Celtics were around, that talent gap wasn't so high, but after they went away, I mean, you talk about Indiana and Chicago, and you're pretty much always talking about 3 stars versus 1 at that point. But I really do like this information that I was able to pull together here because there's no refuting it. Numbers don't lie, and just look at what you're seeing right here. I mean, in 2011, they were 1-6 versus Boston and Chicago. I vividly remember 2011 because that was the year I thought Boston was going back to the finals to play LA, and I thought they were going to beat them that time. 1-6 that season. They both got 4-1 in the playoffs. And you might want to point to injuries for Boston that year. Okay, then I can jump to 2014 when Brooklyn actually swept them in that regular season. The Brooklyn Nets actually swept the Miami Heat, and between Brooklyn and Indiana at that time, Miami was only 2-6 for the regular season, and they 4-1 both of them in the playoffs. And this pattern just keeps on going. It's very hard to ignore that they don't just beat these teams that they lose to in the regular season, they dominate these teams when it comes to the playoffs. And so that brings us to where we are this season, and although some of the teams look better, like Washington is looking pretty good, you have Boston right now, Toronto has done a good job getting pieces like Serge Ibaka and PJ Tucker. But the one thing that I'm looking at with 2017, which now you see on your screen, is against, I guess, what you would call the Eastern Conference contenders. This year they're 7-1 versus them. So you're looking at Washington and Toronto here. They don't even have wins against the Cavaliers this season. They have close and good games, especially with that Washington one. That's contender for game of the year, but they don't have any wins against them. And then you have Boston. I'm always happy when Boston beats Cleveland, but I'm also realistic about it. And Cleveland almost won that game without the help of Kevin Love and J.R. Smith. Both of them were out. So those are 2 very important pieces to the Cavaliers. When those pieces come back and they're in the playoffs, they're gonna run over Boston without much resistance. And the thing about it is, I'm not a fanboy. I'm a Celtics fan, but I'm not a fanboy, and there's a difference there. Of course, I hope we beat Cleveland, but I'm also realistic. Until we actually finally flip those assets for a player like Jimmy Butler or Paul George, we really don't stand a chance against a roster like Cleveland. Because that's the other thing that people don't really talk about is, yeah, Toronto's gotten better and Washington and Boston are improving, but Cleveland got a lot better this year too. They didn't have Kyle Korver last year when they ran through the East, and that's a very important thing to go to because, again, 2016 is another year. They were 2-5 against Toronto and Detroit combined, and those are both teams that they saw in the playoffs, and they swept Detroit and then they beat Toronto 4-2. And to be honest with you, the way it was going, those wins were really convincing. I was really surprised that they even lost 2 games in that series. So then you have this season when they're 7-1 versus the other teams that people claim are going to give them problems, and then they're 28-10 versus the East, which is not a really horrible record. So yeah, Cleveland has been hurt this season. They've gone on bad stretches. They just lost to Miami twice, and they had LeBron and Kyrie the second time, so there's really no excuse in that. You know, there's no question this is not the best version of Cleveland we've seen, but all I'm trying to tell you guys with this video is that Cleveland and LeBron James led teams, they're lying to you. That's what they do every single season. They have these questionable stretches, they go in the playoffs, and it is never a problem in the East. The closest thing that happens is maybe a 7-game series every now and then, and we all know LeBron James, he shows up for these game 7s. The last thing that I want to point out to you might scare you, but it's also just going to bring you back to reality that Cleveland is not really going to have a problem in the East this year. LeBron James is considered to be coasting right now because he's quiet. He's doing what he's been doing since he left Miami, basically. He uses the regular season, fine-tunes his body, lets the team find the best version of themselves, basically, while somebody else has the spotlight. So this year is James Harden and Westbrook. And this is considered a quiet season for LeBron. However, he's averaging 26 points, basically 9 assists and 8 rebounds. On top of that, he is shooting 53% from the field goal, that's his field goal percentage, and 40% from the three-point line. This is definitely his best year in Cleveland, and it's not really close, and it's pretty much his best year since the last 2 years he had in Miami. So LeBron James at 32 years old, considered to be quiet now, considered to be slowing down, is having his best season since 2014, and nobody's really talking about that. So when it comes time for the playoffs and everybody's situated, Kevin Love and J.R. Smith are back, Kyle Korver is a great part of the offense, this new team that they have with Darren Williams, when all this comes together in the playoffs, you're not going to remember these losses that they just had to the Miami Heat, you're not going to remember that they lost to the Celtics, you're not going to remember any of the tough things that have been happening this year. They're going to go back to the NBA Finals with relatively little opposition, and then, you know, who knows what happens from there. We don't know what's up with the Warriors situation, and I don't know if the Spurs can beat them right now. I just don't know. I have to see them play again. So that's basically my forecast for this season. And look, I'm not riding Cleveland, I'm not a LeBron fan, I just believe that the worst thing in this world is false hope. And when the same thing has happened this entire decade, the same thing that's happening right now, I just feel like maybe it's time to look at patterns and just kind of estimate what's going to happen in the future, because it's pretty telling. Trust me, you can look back in the past and you can think about things that have happened and you can avoid a lot of mistakes in the future that way. And thinking that Cleveland is going to have some kind of trouble in the East, that's one of the mistakes you can avoid by just looking what has happened in the last 6 seasons. So as usual, you're free to disagree with me, you're free to tell me I'm an idiot, do whatever you want in the comment section. I definitely want to hear your opinions, of course, because I'm always open to hearing what you think. If you think that there is a team in the East that can beat Cleveland, I want to hear what team that is and let me know why. And definitely the Western Conference matchup, if it does end up being the Spurs and Cleveland, you know, what kind of chances do you think they stand against them, because Kawhi is balling right now. So that would certainly be interesting to see a finals matchup where Kawhi is actually, you know, a superstar, because he was not a superstar back in 2013 or 2014 the last time they played. Oh, and one more thing before I wrap the video up. When this goes up, I may or may not be at 100,000 subscribers. I'm watching a live count right now and it's really close. The last video is really helping, giving my channel that last push it needs. So I definitely want you to leave in the comment section some ideas for what you would like me to do for 100K. I already have my own ideas, obviously, but I just want to hear what some of you guys think as well. You know, it's just always good to have fan input. Not that it's you guys making a decision for me, but, you know, just have some input in there. So definitely leave that. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, comment, subscribe, help get to 100K because we are right on the brink of it, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.